950. Real Texas, Real Talk. KPRC Houston, an iHeart radio station.
In North Texas, maybe in Texas in general, we are kind of insulated, I think, from what seems to be beginning in a lot of other places, which is layoffs. I mentioned Ford laying off 3,000 people, Wayfair laying off 900 people. Some of these major corporations are laying off by the hundreds and in some cases by the thousands. And in fact, more than half of all U.S. companies are planning to lay off employees because they think an economic downturn is not only here, but is likely to get a little bit worse. Here to talk about it with us is Dr. Jayne Gardner. Dr. Gardner, welcome to AM 950 KPRC. She's a business strategist. You'll find her at JayneGardner.com. So what are you hearing on the employment realm? You know, in some areas, it seems like some jobs are still fairly insulated from layoffs, but other fields we're starting to see the layoffs beginning.
Yes, I agree, Levi. Dallas is kind of protected. We have high employment right now. However, it is great to stay prepared because, like you said, that economic downturn is going down. So I think we do need to prepare in case it happens to us.
Okay, so what should a company be thinking of? They don't want to lay people off, but they're afraid they might have to. When do you reach the point where you start to take action versus just talking about taking action? What things do you need to consider?
Well, you have to consider fear. Now, remember, if you do lay off one person, fear trickles down into all of your people. So you better have a very strategic plan if you're going to lay off about what you're going to do to prevent that fear, because fear cripples your production level. And, you know, you don't want to set that up by just laying off one or two people. If you're going to do it, go big.
Okay, so if you're going to lay people off, it's like pulling off the Band-Aid, right? Just get it over with, lay off as many people as you need to, and just get it done.
Yeah, the other thing, you know, that all of the CEOs I coach tell me, they say, oh, and really, I mean, CEOs that I coach, they feel bad about it. It's not like they're cold-blooded like some employees may think. But here's the deal, guys and girls. You've got, if you're going to lay off, be compassionate, but don't let it control you, because that's kind of a weakness. If you go in to talk to someone and you're feeling too much for them, they get down and they can feel it. So again, be crisp. Decide who you're going to lay off. Give them all, you know, the little talk you can and all the help you can, and then let it go.
Okay. Take me through the process of who you decide to lay off. Now, there used to be a time where it was all based on seniority. How many years do you have with the company? The people who've been here the longest are the most protected. The people who've been here the least amount of time are the least protected. I feel like it's shifted more towards talent at this point. Who are the most valuable employees? Who are the people we really need to keep?
Talent is right, but there are the two other things you want to consider. Consider the accountability. How productive are they? And if you don't have a way to measure productivity for each person you have every day, find a way, because that probably is who you ought to lay off, is the people that aren't producing. That, you know, that whole thing about quiet quitting, I'm seeing that a lot in companies right now because they get a little too confident with the business atmosphere as it had been before this. You know, they kind of had the control. They could stay home if they wanted to or whatever. But now, you know, things are a little different. So lay off the people that are not performing, first of all. And yes, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, can you define quiet quitting for me? Is this what we used to refer to as phoning it in?
Tell me about phoning in. I'm not sure if that's the same thing.
Phoning in is that, okay, I'm here and I'm working. I'm not really doing anything. Yeah. But as long as you don't notice that I'm not really doing anything, that I'm phoning it in, I'll keep collecting a paycheck. Thank you very much.
That's it. And, you know, in the company, you know, I draw people to me, CEOs that coach. They're really nice people. And they are the ones that have those people that are disengaged and dare to kind of push that limit a little bit. So that's one of the first things I tell them to implement before they start laying off, is implement a system where you can count metrics. How much is that person producing for your company? And let them know you're counting.
Okay. And is there a way to quantify? I guess in some fields it's easier than others to quantify exactly what somebody's producing. If somebody's in sales, it's pretty easy to see what they're selling. But there are other, I would think, other jobs where it's a little bit more difficult, isn't it, to figure out who's producing and who isn't?
Well, it should be in the whole evaluations you set up for people. You want to have quantitative data that you measure about everybody, and you have to design it that way. No matter what people do, you can measure. You can measure how hard you think they're trying. You can measure how much they are showing up, literally. You can measure their attitude. And all of those things matter, and you want to make sure you communicate those numbers to your people.
You know, I'm kind of struck, Dr. Gardner, by it being sort of almost like a catch-22 situation when it comes to laying people off. When you lay people off, it seems like it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. In other words, you're worried about the economy going bad, so you lay people off, and the more people get laid off, the more the economy goes bad. It's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mm-hmm. That's the reason I'm saying challenge your accountability process, because what if everybody you had produced 100%? You wouldn't lay off anybody, would you?
No. You wouldn't think so.
So, yeah, that's why you put that system in place. You know, systems are everything in a company, and you need a system to measure productivity because your employees need to know you're measuring them. They'll do a lot better, you know, if they know you're checking them. It's the same, just a human nature thing of knowing somebody, I'm going to have to be accountable to somebody. It works.
Yeah. You know, I'm a baby boomer. I'm not going to ask you to identify your age. The last thing I would do is never ask a woman her age. I learned that the hard way. But here's what I've found, that from generation to generation, we have a very different approach, do we not? And how we feel about work, how we feel about a work ethic, what we consider to be important as far as how many hours we're willing to put in to our jobs. And in generation to generation, it's a little bit different. Do you find that sometimes you're better off keeping people from certain generations when it comes time to lay off versus other generations just because they have a tendency to work harder?
No, diversity is everything. You've got to keep those millennials and the Gen Xers because, hey, you know what they bring that the baby boomers are missing is purpose. They really do have that down. I mean, they really define what kind of job they want better than we did at that age. They really know what they're doing as far as holding up, you know, I want to bring my dog, but that's part of who they are. So we got to fold in the importance of that. But the challenge with that age group is production. So if you don't measure what they're doing, I've seen that be a real problem.
Okay. Going forward, what are you feeling? What are you seeing? Where do you think this economy is going? Where do you think business is going in general between now and the end of the year?
You know, I don't think it's going to go the economic downturn. Let me put it to you this way. The downturn is only going to happen if we panic with this kind of article. The fear driven by an article that comes out that says, oh my gosh, all these people are laying off. That's what's going to make it turn down more. We have to keep our wits about us and not react to fear, because fear is going to drive it straight to the floor. But in reality, we've all seen downturns. We've all seen this happen. Why not hold on to the people you've got? If you've got people that are not performing, okay, let them go. But why not hold on to them and tell them that and say, I am going to try my best to keep you. And let them start performing. Tell them, I need you to perform. And I think they'll come up to bat for you.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's some pretty sound advice there. I think probably employers are fairly guilty, are they not, of not necessarily communicating well with their workforce of what it is they need them to do.
Mm-hmm. We are. We're all guilty, even with our kids. Think about it. You know, it's hard to keep our systems in place and to carry through. I think the hardest part is, did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? You know, it's that part. We can delegate well, but, you know, it's when you just give up everything that gets you in trouble. You've got to follow up. You're still in charge, and you're running the show.
Okay. Good advice. Dr. Gardner, thanks for joining me today. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Good to be with you.